We use the CJ5 mounts. So there they are down there. Tacked them on the frame. I think I'm gonna have to swap them. And everybody's saying, and I know they're right, they're saying, hey, you need to have this motor from the center of the vehicle. It needs to be this way, over to the left. I've got it there, but the problem I'm having is we've got some clearance issues with two things. The steering gearbox, when it comes back towards the bell house, a little close, and you can see how close the brake pedal is to the bell house. So I'm gonna move the motor over that way some and see what we can make happen, because I got a lot of room over here. But if you come over here, it's pretty tight. I mean, it's gonna be tight for a manifold, for a header. So we needed to get this engine to move over this way a little bit. And everybody's saying to keep it 3/4 that way. I'm trying to get it dead center, really, because I wanna be able to clear this firewall and come back in there. So what I did is I left this mount alone. Well, I moved it back some. I wanted it further back that way. And this is what you're fighting, the steering and then the bell house on that steering drag link. That's what you're fighting, because once you get it in, it gets really close. So what I did is I cut this one down an inch. I measured it exactly an inch. I oblonged that a little so I have a little bit, 1/4 inch to play with. I can move it just a touch if I need to, but I cut this all the way. I'm moving the whole motor. This is the factory right-hand side bracket, but I have oblonged it there so it has a little bit of movement, but I moved it a whole inch from what it normally would be. Normally this bracket would be an inch this way. I also have butted it. Well, I cheated a little and grinded some of that off, but pretty much where this hole is right here, that's kind of even with that hole where I welded it. But I just kind of got it butted up to that, and it's matching over there. I got them in about the same spot. Got them tacked in, and what I did to compensate for this mount, since I've moved the whole motor an inch that way, I added some plate. I had some big plate, so I stacked up this huge plate, and I've got strong bolts there, so I feel like this little V6, it shouldn't have any problem. Hopefully not. It's a pretty strong motor mount. So we're going to see when we set that in what happens. So I've spaced this out an inch, and I cut an inch off the bracket on the right hand side, and we'll see if this thing don't sit where I want it to, because it was sitting probably an 1.25 inches this way from center line, and everyone says 3/4 of an inch, but I feel like if I get it close to dead center, I can make things happen. I'm just gotta make sure the drive shaft clears. But I'm hoping the fact that I'm setting the motor further back now, that my oil pan will be kind of back behind that anyways, and I won't have to worry about the differential or the yoke hitting it. Just have to worry about the smaller drive shaft. But once we get her in here, we'll see what it looks like. So just for reference here, if you're measuring off the cross member, the face of the cross member there to here, I'm dead on 14 inches. We are 14 inches from the flat of this to that cross member, and that's on both sides. So that's for a little frame of reference if you're trying to do this swap on old CJ2A with a dauntless. These are off a 71 CJ5, so these are factory brackets. But we're going to see what happens when I get her in here. It's going to be tight on the firewall, but that's a good starting point. We'll see where we're at when we stuff her in. All right, got the motor sitting back in there. Now that we've spaced this thing out an inch, if you look at that crank pulley, until that's the middle of the vehicle, that crank is literally dead nut centered. So I've got this motor pretty much centered in here, and I feel like it's got a lot better clearance there and about the same here. I think it's really looking even now for exhaust. The big problem I was having with the brake pedal, which I did bend it a touch when I had the motor out, this was not clearing the bell house before. It was hitting the bell house. So now my brake pedal is clearing. I bent it just a little towards the driver frame rail. So that's working nice. The steering, if you look, is just below the block. I'm probably gonna have to shave on the bell house a little bit, but the steering drag link is clearing the block now. The front drive shaft is gonna be close. So if you look, it is kind of close to the bell house. I can get my whole hand in there. And it's a little close to the oil pan. But there's room to flex. I think we're gonna be okay. I'm thinking I'm gonna move the front end a whole inch forward. Maybe even put a little caster to it, point the pinion down a hair, and it'll get that thing away. It'll get it ahead of the oil pan by a good bit and over, or point it down. Keep the drive shaft down a little bit, all away from this bell house. But I think we're gonna be okay. I'm also gonna put some 1/2 inch. We're pretty much spot on. It's a little ahead of the original cross member, not by a whole lot, but we are gonna drill some holes for this. This is a 71 CJ5 V6 factory cross member. So I'm gonna run this a 1/2 inch off the frame, just because it is kind of tight to the body. But this don't have any kind of body lift or anything like that. So I know a lot of people have tried to lift it up an inch with some body spacers, but we're gonna leave it like it is because it looks cool. Sitting down on the ground, still got the factory. I think they were used pieces of tire for the body mounts, I believe, back in the day. So it still has that right there. Body is a little bit rough, but the pans look decent when you're sitting inside it. So we just got to figure out our exhaust configuration, but we use the V6 mounts. We modified them a little bit, and she's sitting in there, and there's still room to get back there on the firewall. So I wanted to do a little walk around of the complete disc brake system so you can see what's going on. If you want to do this swap to your old Willys, I would highly recommend getting a Dana 30. I know it's a tad wider, just a tad wider, but you get the open knuckles, ball joints, and the disc brakes on this are off like a late, like an 86 CJ7. So it's got this style caliper, and the rubber hoses are 86 CJ7. All three of them are, the left, right, and the rear. So we got all that plumbed on. We got our brake lines bent. I get the pre-flared ones from O'Reilly's. They're really nice. Just kind of get you some measurements out, and you can just get ones already flared up for you. But here is the master cylinder right there. It's got a cool bracket. Now you can make one work from, 60s, early 70, 71. I'm sure there's several years that has this type of master cylinder that you could try to graft in, but Kaiser Willys sells a nice setup that you can just bolt right on. You have to drill some holes. It's got 4 holes over here. You have to, get it in there and measure and drill through the frame. And it's got just 2 bolts right here for this bracket. Comes with this nice adjustable push rod. And what I really like about the kit are these guys right here. Because you don't have a lot of room when the bell house is in here. It's very close. The steering's very close when it comes back. So this makes it so you don't have a flared line coming out here and looping around. It also has a proportioning valve to adjust the pressure right here on this knob. You can increase or decrease the pressure to your rear brakes. It's got a nifty harness for your brake light switch right there. And I did have to notch this bracket. Well, I didn't have to notch it, because once you get the thing pumped up and working, when you push on it, it only comes down. That's a lot of pressure on it. And you got a lot of room before it hits. But when it's empty and you can push the piston all the way in, this pedal will really slam on that bracket. So I notched it to give it all the room. That way, if you do have a little bit of a leak and your pedal gets mushy, you can push the piston as far as you want to its full extent to get that thing to stop when you've got a little bit of a leak. But that's what she looks like. That's where I decided to put that proportion valve. We still got the old Ross box in here. So I just mounted it right in front of it so I could make a short run for the, you know, the rear brake and the front brake line and not have to like run lines all over the place. But that's what we're looking like. If you want to do it, I'd highly recommend doing it with the engine out. It makes everything a lot easier. I'm sure it can be done with the engine in, but if you have the engine out, it'd be a good time to put you some disc brakes on.